Have you ever felt like life keeps kicking you when you're already down? I'm going to tell you about the day I thought my grandfather betrayed me, until I discovered the truth that changed everything. If you've ever felt underestimated by your family, this story is for you. The vinyl chair in Samuel Tucker's law office squeaked every time I shifted my weight. I'd been sitting there for 45 minutes, watching my cousins' faces light up like slot machines hitting jackpot. Outside the window, Cedar Falls looked picture perfect under October sun. Main Street with its brick storefronts, the old water tower, fields of corn stubble stretching to the horizon. Inside this room, I was about to find out what my grandfather really thought of me. Grace squeezed my hand. My daughter, 14 years old and already wiser than I'd ever be, sat beside me doing algebra homework on her lap. She had to. We couldn't afford to waste time. I had the 2 o'clock shift at Henderson's hardware store, and Mr. Henderson didn't care about inheritance meetings or dead grandfathers. Vicky got the farmhouse. Of course she did. 3 stories of Victorian charm with the wraparound porch and the stained glass windows Grandpa Hal's wife had installed back in 1962. Vicky smiled that smile of hers, the one she practiced in the mirror, the one that said, "I knew I deserved this." She wore Chanel. I wore Target clearance. The difference between us had never been clearer. Bobby got the 100 acres, prime Iowa farmland, black soil that could grow anything. He nodded once, already calculating corn yields in his head. The gambling problem he'd had 5 years ago was supposed to be behind him now. The mortgage he'd taken out on his own land to cover those debts? Well, nobody talked about that. Linda got the John Deere tractor and all the working equipment. She actually teared up, pressing her hand to her chest like she'd won an Oscar. Sweet Linda, who'd sent Grandpa Hal a card twice a year and thought that was enough. Then Samuel Tucker cleared his throat and looked at me. "To my granddaughter, Margaret Sullivan," he read, adjusting his reading glasses, "I leave the old International Harvester combine in the back field." The silence that followed had weight to it, physical weight that pressed down on my shoulders and made the room smaller. Bobby snorted. Actually snorted, like I'd just been told a joke. "The rust bucket? That thing hasn't run since Carter was president." Vicky reached across the table and touched my arm. Her fingers were cold. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. Grandpa Hal must have been confused at the end. We can help you, though. Maybe get $200 from the scrapyard?" Linda whispered, eyes downcast. "At least it's something?" Grace's hand tightened on mine. I felt her about to say something, but I shook my head slightly. Not here. Not now. 30 years. 30 summers driving out to that farm, helping with harvest, sitting on the porch while Grandpa Hal told stories about the old days. I was there every Sunday for the last 5 years of his life, bringing groceries when his arthritis got too bad to shop, reading to him when his eyes went weak, sitting with him in silence when the loneliness got to be too much. And this is what I meant to him, a broken-down machine everyone called an eyesore. Samuel Tucker's voice cut through my spiral. "Mrs. Sullivan, there's also this private note." He handed me an envelope, my name in Grandpa Hal's shaky handwriting, the letters slanting right like they were running away from something. I slipped it into my purse without opening it. Vicky was already talking about renovation plans for the farmhouse. Bobby was on his phone, probably calling his farm manager. Linda dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, playing the part of the grateful grandchild. I stood up. "Grace, we need to go." In the parking lot, I sat in my 2004 Honda Civic, the one with the broken air conditioning and the check engine light that had been on for 2 years, and let myself fall apart. Just for a minute. Just long enough for the shame to wash over me and through me. Grace didn't say anything. She just handed me the fast food napkins from the glove compartment and waited. "I thought," my voice cracked, "I thought he saw me, Gracie. Really saw me." "Open the letter, Mom." My hands shook as I tore the envelope. The letter inside was 2 pages, written in that familiar scroll I'd recognize anywhere. "Maggie, girl, if you're crying right now, stop. Dry those tears. You listen to me. I know what they think of that old combine. I know what they think of you, that you're the one who couldn't keep a marriage together, the one who lives in a trailer, the one who never made anything of herself. They're wrong. They've always been wrong about you." I had to stop reading, put my hand over my mouth to keep the sob from escaping. That combine in the backfield, she's got more secrets than a small-town gossip. Here's what I need you to do. Go there tonight when they're all celebrating their inheritance. Check the grain tank on the left side. There's a panel that doesn't quite match the others. Rust pattern's wrong, and it gives when you push. You'll need a screwdriver from my toolbox in the barn. What you find there will change your life. But more important, it'll test you. I'm not just giving you money, girl. I'm giving you a choice. What you do with what you find will show the world who you really are. Trust me, your old Grandpa Hal knew exactly what he was doing. P.S. Grace is going to Iowa State. Full ride. I'm making sure of that. All my love, Grandpa Hal. Grace read over my shoulder. When she finished, she looked at me with those eyes that were too old for 14. Mom, he planned this. He wanted you to have that combine. But why all the secrecy? Maybe, Grace said softly, he wanted to see what you'd do when everyone doubted you. I made it to my shift 15 minutes late, 2:15 instead of 2 Anajin. Mr. Henderson didn't dock my pay, but his look said he wanted to. I spent the next 4.5 hours stocking shelves, scanning items, smiling at customers who'd heard about the will reading and offered sympathetic looks. At least you got something, right? They'd say. Better than nothing. I nodded and smiled and said thank you and died a little inside each time. At 6:30, I picked up Grace from Henderson's office, where she'd been doing homework. Mr. Henderson let her wait there when I worked late shifts, one of the few kindnesses this job offered. We stopped at the Dollar General for soup and bread. My checking account had $89 in it. The electric bill sitting on our tiny kitchen counter said I owed $127. I'd figure that out tomorrow. Tonight we were going to the farm. The farmhouse blazed with light when we drove past at 8:30. Through the windows I could see Vicky holding court in the living room, champagne glass in hand. Bobby's truck was there, Linda's Camry. They were celebrating, dividing up Grandpa Hal's life into neat little portions they could sell or use or show off. I parked by the old barn, killed the headlights. Grace grabbed the flashlight from under the seat and Grandpa's toolbox from the trunk. We'd stopped by the barn earlier while the cousins were at the farmhouse, and I'd known exactly where he kept his tools. Same place for 40 years. The October night smelled like turned earth and coming rain. Crickets sang in the darkness. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. These were the sounds of my childhood, my teenage years. Every summer I'd spent here thinking I'd found the one place in the world where I belonged. The combine loomed in the moonlight, massive and red and rusted, sitting alone in the tall grass like some prehistoric creature that had laid down to die and never got back up. Grace played the flashlight beam across its hull. "It's bigger than I thought," she whispered. "I used to play on this when I was your age." I ran my hand along the metal, feeling rust flake off under my fingers. Grandpa would lift me up to the cab, let me pretend to drive. He'd say, "See this machine, Maggie? Looks like junk to most folks, but she changed the world. Don't ever judge something by how it looks on the outside." I thought he was just being philosophical, teaching me some life lesson about not judging books by covers. Now I wondered if he'd been planning this all along. The left side of the grain tank. I moved slowly, running my hands over the panels, feeling for something different. Grace held the light steady. "Here." My fingers found it. A panel where the rust pattern didn't match, where decades of weather hadn't eaten through quite as deep. I pressed against it and felt it give slightly. I worked the screwdriver around the edges carefully. 5 minutes of prying, of finding hidden clips, of Grace holding her breath beside me. Then, clunk, the panel popped free. Behind it sat a metal container about the size of a shoebox, wrapped in thick plastic, sealed with tape that still looked new. Heavy, at least 15, maybe 20 pounds. "Mom," Grace breathed, "what is this?" I looked back at the farmhouse, at the lights and the laughter and the celebration that didn't include us. "Let's find out at home." Our trailer sat in Riverside Mobile Home Park at the edge of Cedar Falls. It wasn't much. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen you could barely turn around in, a bathroom where the shower leaked. But it was clean, and it was ours, and the rent was $450 a month. That's all that mattered when you were living on $11.50 an hour. Grace made hot chocolate while I stared at the sealed box on our kitchen table. Powdered mix because we couldn't afford the real stuff, but she added extra mini marshmallows because this felt like an occasion that needed something special. I sat there for 5 full minutes just looking at it. What if I opened it and found nothing? What if this was Grandpa Hal's idea of a joke? Or worse, what if he really had been confused at the end, and this was just old farm documents or broken tools or... Mom! Grace set down 2 mugs of cocoa. You have to open it. My hands shook as I cut through the plastic with a kitchen knife. Inside was a metal document box with a combination lock. A note taped to the top. Your birthday when you turn 16. The day I taught you to drive the old Ford. You'll remember. I smiled despite everything. July 22nd, 1998. The day I'd stalled out the truck 6 times trying to get out of the driveway, and Grandpa Hal had laughed so hard he'd cried. 07-22-98. Click. The box opened. Documents spilled across our small table. Official certificates with embossed seals, photographs in protective sleeves, original receipts yellowed with age, and on top a letter dated 3 months before Grandpa Hal died. Grace picked up the first document. Mom, this is from the Smithsonian Institution. I read over her shoulder, my eyes scanning formal language until I found the key phrase. This certifies that the 1975 International Harvester Model 1480 Combine, serial number 0101, is the original prototype unit, the first of its kind ever manufactured, and represents a significant milestone in agricultural history. My hands started trembling. I grabbed the next document, an appraisal letter. Dr. Eleanor Fitzgerald, agricultural equipment specialist, dated 2 years ago. Estimated current market value, $12,000 to $15,000. Million, Grace whispered. Mom, that says million. This can't be real. But I was already reaching for the next paper, and the next. Purchase receipts from 1975. Correspondence between Grandpa Hal and International Harvester executives. Photographs of him shaking hands with men in suits, standing beside a brand new gleaming red combine. The same combine that now sat rusting in a backfield. $15 million, I said to my empty kitchen. He left me $15 million. Grace and I held each other and cried. We laughed and cried and couldn't breathe and couldn't stop. All the years of struggle, of choosing which bill to pay, of telling her we couldn't afford field trips or new shoes or anything that wasn't absolutely necessary, all of it crashing down around us in one impossible moment. But then I remembered Grandpa Hal's first letter. I'm not just giving you money, girl. I'm giving you a choice. I wiped my eyes and picked up his longer letter with shaking hands. Maggie girl, right about now you're probably crying again. But these better be happy tears. Let me tell you a story you never knew. In 1975, I wasn't just a farmer. International Harvester picked me because I had that engineering degree from Iowa State. Same school Grace is going to attend. They gave me the very first Model 1480 combine ever built. Serial number 01. My job was to test it for 2 full harvest seasons and document everything. That machine changed farming forever, Maggie. Before 1480, combines were slow, inefficient, broke down constantly. The rotary threshing system in that old rust bucket became the blueprint for every single combine built after 1976. Every single one. When I was done testing, IH wanted it back for their corporate museum. But I'd grown attached. That machine had saved our farm during the hardest years, so I made them a deal. I'd buy it at full retail price, and they could build another one for their museum. They thought I was crazy paying $47,000 for a used machine in 1977. Over the years, collectors called, museum curators, rich farmers who collect vintage equipment like other people collect art. First offer was $100,000 in 1985. Last offer was $8 million in 2022 from a Texas oil man. I said no every time, not because I'm stubborn, okay, maybe a little, but because I was waiting to see which of my grandchildren understood that some things are worth more than money. Vicky sees dollar signs in everything. That realtor job taught her to evaluate property, not people. Bobby would sell it and gamble the money away, like he almost did with his own farm. Linda would let her husband make the decision, and he'd waste it on a boat and a vacation home they don't need. But you, Maggie, you understand sacrifice. You've raised Grace alone on poverty wages. You've chosen to pay her school field trip fees instead of fixing your car's air conditioning. You've gone to bed hungry so she could have seconds. I'm not giving you this machine to make you rich, girl. I'm giving you the choice of what to do with wealth. Here's what I want you to think about. You could sell it and never worry about money again. Buy a house, send Grace to any college, travel the world. You deserve all of that. But you could also do something bigger, something that lasts beyond your lifetime. International Harvester went bankrupt in 1985. That company no longer exists. But what they built changed how America feeds itself. This machine represents innovation, hard work, and the farmers who literally feed the world. What will you build with this gift, Maggie? I trust you. I've always trusted you. When Tom left, everyone else whispered about what you did wrong. I knew the truth. You were too good for him. When you moved into that trailer, they pitied you. I admired you. You were doing what it took to survive and protect your daughter. You're stronger than all of them combined, girl. Now show them. One more thing. Don't tell them yet. Not until you've decided what to do. Once they know, the vultures will circle. Your cousins will hire lawyers, claim I wasn't in my right mind, fight you for years, take your time, research, think, pray if that helps. Then make your choice. Whatever you decide, I'm proud of you. All my love, Grandpa Hal P.S. In the envelope, there's also a letter for Grace. Give it to her when you're ready. I handed Grace her letter with trembling fingers, watched her face as she read. Dear Grace, by the time you read this, you know about the combine. Your mom is probably terrified right now, wondering if she'll make the right choice. She will. She always does. I have one request for you. Whatever she decides, support her. She's carried you on her back for 14 years. Now it's time to carry some of her burden. You're going to Iowa State. Full scholarship is already set up through my estate, separate from the combine. That's non-negotiable. Be the woman your mother already is. Love, Grandpa Hal. Grace looked at me with tears streaming down her face. Mom, you don't have to worry about my college. He thought of everything. What are you going to do? I looked at the documents spread across our table, at the numbers that could change our entire lives, at the choice Grandpa Hal had laid before me, like a final exam. First, I said, I need to know if this is real. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. My ancient Dell laptop, slow as molasses and held together with hope, sat on my bed while I searched everything I could find about prototype farm equipment, International Harvester history, vintage machinery auctions. What I found made Grandpa Hal's appraisal seem conservative. A 1970 John Deere prototype had sold for $8.2 million in 2019. A Case IH experimental model brought in $6.8 million in 2022. But those were smaller machines, less historically significant. The International Harvester 1480 had revolutionized farming. I found a Smithsonian Magazine article titled The Combine That Fed America, a History Channel documentary segment on YouTube, technical papers from agricultural engineering journals, auction house records showing the market for prototype equipment had exploded in the last 5 years, and International Harvester's bankruptcy in 1985 made anything they'd produced exponentially more valuable. The company didn't exist anymore. This wasn't just a piece of equipment. It was industrial archaeology, an extinct species of American manufacturing excellence. My combine, God, my combine, could legitimately be worth $20 million. Dawn broke over the trailer park. I watched the sun come up through our small window, listened to Grace's soft breathing from the other room, and tried to understand how my life had changed so completely in 24 hours. At 6:30, I drove back to the farm, alone this time. I needed to see the combine again, to really look at it with new eyes. Morning fog rolled across the Iowa fields. The air was cool and damp and smelled like autumn dying into winter. I walked through wet grass that soaked my shoes, approached the machine slowly, reverently. In the early light, I could see details I'd missed before. The serial plate, tarnished but readable, IH 1480-01. The original International Harvester logos, faded but still visible. the revolutionary rotary threshing system that had changed everything. I sat down on the ground, leaned against one of the massive tires, and let myself cry. Really cry, the way you can only cry when no one's watching. I sat there in the wet grass, letting the weight of 8 years finally break open. All the shame I'd carried, all the times I'd made myself small, so others wouldn't see how much I was struggling. All the nights I'd cried in the bathroom so Grace wouldn't hear. This machine, this impossible, beautiful, rusty machine, was Grandpa Hal telling me I was wrong, that I'd never been small, that I'd been strong all along, strong enough to survive, strong enough to choose, strong enough to become whoever I decided to be. Bobby's truck pulled up before I could finish processing that thought. He climbed out, looking suspicious and irritated. "Maggie? What the hell are you doing here so early?" I wiped my face quickly, stood up, just looking at it. "You've been here twice in 2 days. What's going on?" He walked closer, studying me like I was a problem to solve. "You planning to fix it up or something?" It was Grandpa's. I just wanted to spend time with it. Bobby laughed, harsh and sharp. "Jesus, Maggie, you're more sentimental than I thought." He kicked one of the tires. "This thing is an eyesore, taking up premium farmland I could be using." Every fiber of my being wanted to tell him. To see his face when he learned this rust bucket was worth more than his entire farm. But Grandpa Hal's warning echoed. "Once they know, vultures will circle." "Look," Bobby said, pulling out his wallet, "I'll give you 500 cash right now. Save you the trouble of dealing with the scrapyard." I swallowed the words, fighting to get out. "I'm not ready to let it go yet, Bobby." His face darkened. "Suit yourself. But don't come crying when the scrapyard only offers 200. After he left, I sat in my car for 20 minutes before I could stop shaking. Then I called the number from Grandpa's documents. "Dr. Fitzgerald, my name is Margaret Sullivan. You did an appraisal for my grandfather, Harold Peterson, 2 years ago?" Her voice was warm, understanding. "Harold's granddaughter? Oh, my dear, I'm so sorry for your loss. He was a remarkable man." "The combine," I said. "I need to know if it's real, if the appraisal is accurate." "Would you like me to come examine it again? Verify everything?" "Yes, but I need to keep this quiet." "Family complications?" The knowing tone in her voice said she'd seen this before. "Something like that." "Saturday, 10 a.m., I'll bring my equipment." That night, Vicky showed up at my trailer. She stood on my tiny porch holding a Starbucks cup, wearing designer jeans that probably cost more than my monthly rent. I watched her eyes scan the interior when I opened the door. The thrift store furniture, the patch curtains, the clearance groceries stacked on the counter because we didn't have a pantry. "Maggie, can we talk?" I let her in because I didn't know how to say no. Old habit. "We're worried about you," she said, settling onto my worn couch like she was visiting a patient in a hospital. "Bobby told me you went to the farm again this morning, that you wouldn't take his offer for the combine." "I'm fine, Vicky." "Are you?" She leaned forward, all concern and sisterly care. "Because we've been talking, Bobby, Linda, and me. We want to help you." "Help me how? What if we contest the will? Argue that Uncle Hal wasn't in his right mind?" Her eyes were bright with the idea. "We could get you a proper inheritance, maybe 50,000 from selling the farmhouse. You could get a real apartment, get Grace some nice things." The words "real apartment" hit like a slap, as if this place where I'd kept my daughter safe and warm wasn't real, as if our life here didn't count. Grandpa Hal was completely lucid when he made that will. "Honey," Vicky's voice dripped with pity, "leaving you a broken machine while we got actual assets? That's not rational." I stood up, suddenly furious in a way that felt clean and good. He had his reasons, and I'm going to respect them. Vicky stood too, frustration cracking her careful mask. "You're being stubborn. Don't say we didn't try to help you." After she left, Grace came out of her room. "Mom, I don't like how she talks to you." "Neither do I, baby." I hugged her tight. "Neither do I." Before we continue with what Maggie discovered, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had family members who acted like they were helping you, but really just wanted to control you? If this story is touching something in your heart, leave a comment below. Now let me tell you about the day everything changed. Dr. Eleanor Fitzgerald arrived Saturday morning in a dusty Jeep, wearing work clothes and carrying professional equipment that looked like it cost more than my car. She was 64, with calloused hands and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Grace and I met her at the farm. The cousins were nowhere around. I'd checked first. For 2 hours, Dr. Fitzgerald examined the combine like a surgeon studying a rare disease. She took photographs from every conceivable angle, measured dimensions, examined the cereal plate with a magnifying glass, checked the grain tank mechanism, studied the revolutionary threshing system that had changed agriculture forever. "See this rotary design?" she said, running her hand along the mechanism. "Revolutionary for 1975. Most farmers didn't understand it at first. Too different from what they knew. But within 2 years, every manufacturer in the world had copied it." She told us stories while she worked, how she'd grown up on a farm in Nebraska, how her father had bought one of the first production 14 acres in 1976, and how it had cut their harvest time in half, saved enough money to send her to college, how she'd become an agricultural engineer because of this machine's impact. Grace hung on every word. "So machines like this fed people?" "Sweetie," Dr. Fitzgerald said gently, "machines like this fed the world." Finally, she sat with us on the tailgate of her Jeep and delivered her verdict. "Your grandfather's documentation is impeccable. Serial number verified. This is definitely 001. Smithsonian certificate authentic. Historical significance undeniable." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "When I did the appraisal in 2022, I estimated 12 to 15 million. My heart sank. Had the value gone down? But the market has shifted dramatically in 2 years. She pulled up something on her tablet. Last month, a 1968 experimental case tractor sold for 9.2 million. That was just a tractor. This is the prototype that changed modern agriculture. Another pause. She looked at me directly. Current conservative estimate, 15 million. But at the right auction, with the right buyers, she let the words hang there. 18 to 20 million is realistic. The world tilted. Grace squeezed my hand so hard it hurt. Dr. Fitzgerald's voice was gentle but firm. "Mrs. Sullivan, I need to be honest with you about what happens next. You have 3 options. Option 1, private sale. Quick, quiet, but you'll get less money. Probably 12 to 15 million. No publicity, no family drama. Option 2, major auction. Christie's or Sotheby's Agricultural Heritage Division. Proper restoration first. $60,000 to $80,000. Could bring 18 to 20 million. But it's public, takes 6 months, and your family will absolutely find out. Option 3, donation to a museum. Tax deduction, public recognition. Preserves history, but no cash to change your life." She studied my face. "Your grandfather put you in an impossible position. He gave you a test without a right answer. Whatever you choose, people will judge you. Keep the money, some will call you greedy. Give it away, some will call you foolish. The question is, what will you be able to live with?" That night, Grace and I sat at our kitchen table over spaghetti, the cheap kind from a box, with sauce from a jar. The documents were still spread across the counter. $15 million worth of possibility, right next to our dollar store dish soap. "Mom," Grace said quietly, "what do you want to do?" I put down my fork, took a breath, told her the truth. "You want to know what I want? I want to buy you new school clothes that aren't from the clearance rack. I want to take you to a dentist without choosing between that and the electric bill. I want a house with a yard. Nothing fancy, just somewhere you could have friends over without being embarrassed." My voice cracked. "I want to stop waking up at 3 in the morning in a panic about money. I want to prove to everyone, to Vicky, to Bobby, to this whole damn town, that I'm not a failure. I want to call Tom and say, 'Look what I did without you.'" Grace waited. She knew there was more. "But Grandpa Hal didn't give me this money so I could buy stuff or prove points. He gave it to me because he wanted to see if I'd remember what he taught me." I wiped my eyes. "That day when I was 10, sitting on that combine, he said, 'Maggie girl, the best use of money isn't to make yourself comfortable. It's to make the world better.'" I thought he was just being philosophical. Now I understand. He was teaching me how to pass his test. And the truth is, Grace, I'm terrified. Terrified I'll make the wrong choice. Terrified I'll disappoint him. terrified that no matter what I do, I'll regret it. Grace reached across the table and took my hand. At 14, she looked so much older than she should have to. Mom, you know what Grandpa would say? He'd say, Maggie girl, there's no wrong choice. There's just your choice. Whatever you decide, it'll be right because you decided it. When did you get so smart? I had a good teacher. Late that night, I stood outside our trailer looking at stars. Grandpa Hal used to say you could see more stars from the farm than anywhere else in Iowa. Tonight I counted them, tried to count them. Gave up at 47. Tom's voice whispered in my memory. You'll never be anything, Maggie. You dream too small. Maybe he was right. I'd lived small for 8 years. Small home, small paycheck, small dreams. This combine wasn't small. It was the biggest decision I'd ever make. And somewhere up there in those stars, Grandpa Hal was watching, not to judge me, to see what I'd learned. I think I knew what to do, but first I had to face my family. Sunday morning, I called them. I need to talk to all of you. Farm, 10 a.m. tomorrow. It's important. When they arrived, I had the folder of documents ready. Vicky, Bobby, and Linda gathered in the farmhouse living room, curiosity and irritation fighting on their faces. Grace stayed in the car with her book. This was something I had to do alone. I need to tell you something about the combine, I began. Bobby rolled his eyes. Jesus, Maggie, did you finally agree to scrap it? No, I'm going to auction it. Vicky actually laughed. Auction? Who's going to bid on that piece of junk? I spread the documents across the coffee table. Smithsonian certificate, Dr. Fitzgerald's appraisal, historical documentation, auction comparisons. Let them read. It's the prototype International Harvester 1480, I said calmly. Serial number 01, the first one ever made. Linda picked up the appraisal letter, her face confused. I don't understand. It's worth between $18 and $20 million. The silence was absolute, a held breath before a storm. Then Bobby exploded. He stood so fast his chair fell over. What the hell? 20 million? 20 million? And you were just going to keep this quiet? Vicky's face went pale, then red. Her lawyer instincts kicked in immediately. This is unacceptable. Uncle Hal clearly wasn't in his right mind. We're contesting this will. Today. Linda started crying. This isn't fair, Maggie. We're family. We should share it. My kids need college money too. I'd expected this, rehearsed for it, but the reality of their anger still hit like a physical blow. Bobby's rage was volcanic. I've already talked to a lawyer. Uncle Hal had dementia. Everyone knows it. He forgot things, got confused. He had a full cognitive evaluation 3 months before he died, I interrupted. Clean bill of mental health. 3 psychiatrists signed off. Vicky shifted tactics, smooth as silk. Undue influence then. You manipulated an elderly man. Everyone knows you were his favorite. You probably convinced him. Something inside me snapped. Manipulated him. My voice came out louder than I intended. Manipulated him. You want to know where I was the last 5 years of his life? I was there every Sunday, bringing him groceries because his arthritis was too bad to shop, reading to him when his eyes got weak, sitting with him when he was lonely. Where were you, Vicky? Showing up twice a year with expensive wine you knew he couldn't drink because of his medications? Where were you, Bobby? Only coming around when you needed to borrow money for your gambling debts? Where were you, Linda? Sending a card at Christmas and thinking that was enough? Grandpa Hal left me that combine because he chose to, because he knew you'd all do exactly what you're doing right now. You'd see dollars, not legacy. You'd see your cut, not his vision. Well, I'm going to honor what he wanted. I'm auctioning it, and I'm using the money for something he would have been proud of. Vicky tried one more time, her voice calculating. Maggie, be reasonable. Let's split it 4 ways. 5 million each. Everyone walks away happy. Yeah, Bobby added. That's fair. Equal shares. Linda's voice was small, pleading. Please, Maggie, don't destroy the family over this. I took a breath. This was it, the moment I'd been building toward. You want to know what I'm going to do? I'm going to sell it. I'm going to pay off every debt I have. I'm going to buy a modest house for me and Grace. And I'm putting $5 million into a foundation. Their faces lit up. A foundation we all manage? Vicky asked. No. The word landed like a hammer. The Harold Peterson Agricultural Innovation Fund. It will provide full scholarships for farm kids studying agricultural engineering, grants for small family farms to upgrade equipment, research funding for sustainable farming technology, emergency assistance for farming families in crisis, starting fund, $5 million. I'll sit on the board. Grace will too when she's older. I paused, looked at each of them. But you three? You won't get a penny. Bobby's face turned purple. You can't do this. Vicky's mask finally cracked. You'll hear from our lawyer by end of day. They stormed out, all except Linda, who lingered behind, crying softly. Maggie, I need to tell you something. Her voice shook. They're wrong. About Uncle Hal. About you. But my husband, he's pushing me to fight this. We need money, medical bills. Our son's treatment. She looked up, eyes red. I'm so sorry. Then she left too. Grace came out of the car and wrapped her arms around me. Mom, you were amazing. I was shaking. I just declared war on my own family. No, Grace said firmly. You just defended Grandpa's wishes. The next 6 weeks were hell. Cease and desist letters arrived daily. Bobby filed a petition to freeze the estate. Vicky hired an expensive Des Moines law firm. The local newspaper somehow got wind of the story. Family battle over million-dollar farm equipment. People in Cedar Falls took sides. Some defended me at church, in the grocery store, at the hardware store where I still work my shifts. Others believed the cousin's version, that I'd manipulated a confused old man. Ruth Anderson, my neighbor from the trailer park, became my fiercest defender. She stood up at a town hall meeting and told everyone how I'd helped her fix her leaky roof last winter, how I'd driven her to the hospital when she'd had chest pains, how I'd never asked for anything in return. Pastor Jim Wilson gave a sermon about family forgiveness that everyone knew was pointed directly at our situation. The court hearing was brutal, but Samuel Tucker had prepared well. He read Grandpa Hal's detailed wishes. 3 psychiatrists testified that Hal had been completely competent. And then came the video, recorded 4 months before Hal's death, his voice strong and clear. I'm of sound mind and body. I want Maggie to have the combine. The whole thing. My other grandchildren will contest this. They'll claim I was confused or manipulated. Don't let them win. Maggie earned this. She was there. She cared. She understood what matters. The judge denied the motion to freeze the estate, but the social warfare continued. Vicky spread rumors around town. Bobby told anyone who'd listen that I'd stolen from Hal. The church community split down the middle, and through it all, I worked my shifts at the hardware store, came home to my trailer, helped Grace with homework, and tried not to fall apart. The restoration began in week 6. I borrowed $75,000 against the combine's value. The bank was happy to loan it once they saw the appraisal. A professional team arrived from Des Moines with equipment and expertise. Local TV covered it, then regional news. Then NPR did a piece about agricultural heritage and the combine that changed America. The story went national. 3 months later, I stood in Christie's Agricultural Heritage Auction House in Des Moines, wearing a simple black dress I'd bought at TJ Maxx for $49. Grace stood beside me in a dress from the consignment shop, her hand tight in mine. The combine gleamed under spotlights in the exhibition hall. It looked magnificent. Original red paint restored, chrome polished, every detail perfect. The placard read, 1975 International Harvester, 1480 prototype, serial number 011, the machine that changed agriculture. Provenance, Harold Peterson Estate. 200 people filled the auction hall. Museum representatives, private collectors, agricultural historians. And in the back row, arms crossed and faces hard, Bobby, Vicky, and Linda, but also Ruth Anderson in her Sunday best, Pastor Jim Wilson, my co-workers from the hardware store, Dr. Eleanor Fitzgerald giving me a thumbs up from her seat. The auctioneer took the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, Lot 47 represents a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The International Harvester 1480 changed American agriculture forever. This is serial number 01, the very first prototype. Bidding opens at $5 million. A paddle went up immediately. Number 42, a Texas collector in a bolo tie and silver hair. 5 million. 6 million. Paddle 17, phone bidder from the Smithsonian. 7 million. Paddle 89, private agricultural museum from California. 8 million. The Texan again, confidence in his nod. Grace's grip on my hand tightened. I could barely breathe. 9 million. The Smithsonian. 10 million. The Texan. The crowd murmured. Bobby's face in the back row turned red. 11 million. California Museum. 12 million. The Texan. 13 million. The Smithsonian representative was sweating now, making another phone call. The auctioneer's voice rose. We're at 13 million, ladies and gentlemen. A long pause. The Smithsonian rep shook his head and sat down. The California Museum consulted with colleagues and also withdrew. Just the Texan left. 13 million going once. This was it. 13 million. Not 20, but still more than I'd ever dreamed. 15 million. A new voice from the back. An elegant woman in an expensive suit stood up. Everyone turned. The Texan's face fell. He raised his paddle. 16 million. The woman didn't hesitate. 17 million. The Texan paused, calculating his limit. Raised again. 18 million. Immediate response. 19 million. The Texan looked defeated. Lowered his paddle. Shook his head. 19 million going once. The auctioneer called. Going twice. Sold for $19 million. The room erupted. Grace screamed and threw her arms around me. I sobbed into her shoulder, unable to stand, unable to breathe, unable to process that this was real. Ruth was cheering. Cameras flashed. Bobby stormed out. Vicky followed, her face like stone. Linda stayed, crying. I couldn't tell if they were happy tears or sad ones. In a private room afterward, the woman introduced herself. Mrs. Sullivan, I'm Diane Morrison, CEO of Heritage Agricultural Foundation. We're a nonprofit dedicated to preserving farming history. She told me her plan and I started crying all over again. We're not putting your combine in storage. We're going to fully restore it to working condition, actually working, not just for show. Then we'll tour it across America, county fairs, agricultural schools, 4-H events. We'll let children sit in the cab, touch the controls, understand how it changed their world. We estimate 2 million people will see it over the next decade. He would have loved that, I whispered. He would have loved you for making it happen. The story made national news, which meant Tom saw it. He called 3 days after the auction. I almost didn't answer when I saw his number. Maggie, his voice was smooth, practiced. I saw the news. That's incredible. I always knew you had it in you. The lie was so blatant, it almost made me laugh. I was thinking, he continued, maybe we could talk. About us. About giving Grace a real family again. No, I said simply. Maggie, come on. We were good together once. You told me I'd never be anything. You were wrong. But you don't get to be part of what I've become. Goodbye, Tom. I blocked his number. Grace, who'd been listening, hugged me. I'm proud of you, Mom. Me too, baby. Me too. After taxes, fees, and restoration costs, I walked away with $16.2 million. I paid off every debt, credit cards, medical bills, the car, the borrowed restoration money, bought a modest 3-bedroom house on 5 acres outside Cedar Falls. It had a barn where I could finally try the woodworking hobby I'd dreamed about since I was young. I put $6 million into the Harold Peterson Agricultural Innovation Fund, fully endowed to last generations, set aside $2 million for Grace's education, any school, any degree, plus seed money for her future. Invested $5.6 million conservatively for long-term security, and I put $500,000 into an emergency fund for trailer park families. When Ruth Anderson found out her roof repair was covered, she cried so hard she couldn't speak. 2 weeks later, I invited my cousins to my new house. They came, but the anger was still there. Bobby immediately started with, "We're still fighting this." Vicky was cold. "Our lawyer says we have a case." Linda sat quietly, separate from the others, looking miserable. I'd known this moment was coming, prepared for it. "I'm not here to argue," I said. "I'm here to offer you something." They look suspicious. The Harold Peterson Agricultural Innovation Fund has a community outreach division. Bobby, I know you've struggled since your gambling problems. The farm is mortgaged. You're barely holding on. The fund will provide a $50,000 emergency grant to Peterson Family Farm. No strings attached, to help you get back on your feet. Vicky, I know your real estate business is suffering since the market crashed. The fund will sponsor a financial literacy program for small business owners. You'll be paid $25,000 to teach it. Linda, I know your son needs ongoing medical treatment that insurance doesn't cover. The fund has a Farming Families Medical Assistance Program. We'll cover $100,000 in medical expenses. The silence that followed was different this time. Shocked, disbelieving. Bobby's voice was rough. Why? Because that's what Grandpa would have done. Because even though you tried to destroy me, you're still family. Because I'm choosing to be better than my anger. Vicky broke. She actually broke, tears streaming down her face. I was horrible to you. I judged you for living in a trailer while I drove a Mercedes I couldn't afford. I was jealous that Uncle Hal loved you more. I'm so sorry, Maggie. Bobby extended his hand. I was wrong. About the combine. About you. Truce? I shook it. Linda finally spoke. I was too weak to stand up to them, but I knew you were right. Thank you for the medical help. My son, he needs it. 1 year later, we all gathered at my house for Thanksgiving. Bobby and his family, Vicky and her husband, Linda, her husband, and their son, healthy now in remission. Ruth Anderson, Pastor Jim, Dr. Fitzgerald, even some of the restoration team who'd become friends. The conversation was warm, real, healing. Bobby talked about the new equipment he'd bought with the grant money, how his farm was recovering. Vicky shared that she'd paid off her business loans and her company was growing again. Ruth Anderson sat beside me during dinner, her hand finding mine under the table. You remember that day you needed $50 for groceries? She whispered. And I gave you what I had? I nodded, throat tight. I got a check last week, she continued, from your foundation, $20,000, emergency assistance for low-income seniors. Tears rolled down her weathered cheeks. I can fix my roof now, Maggie. The whole roof. I squeezed her hand. You gave me $50 when you only had 60. This is just paying it forward. Dr. Fitzgerald raised her glass during dessert. I've been in this business 30 years, she said. I've seen people inherit fortunes and waste them in months. But Maggie, she looked at me with something like pride. She built a legacy. Harold would be so proud. Linda's son was playing in the yard with Grace, both of them laughing. Grace announced she'd gotten early acceptance to Iowa State's agricultural engineering program. After dinner, Grace and I walked outside. The November air was crisp, stars brilliant overhead. Mom, she said, do you ever regret it? Not keeping all the money? Never, not once. Even though they tried to ruin you? Especially because of that. I looked at the barn where I now spent weekends building furniture, learning the craft I'd always wanted to try, at the house that was modest but ours, at the life we'd built. See, baby, Grandpa didn't give me that combine to make me rich. He gave it to me to teach me the most important lesson. Money doesn't define you. What you do with it does. I could have kept every penny, bought a mansion, proven everyone wrong, but then I would have become exactly what Tom always said I was, someone small and petty. Instead, I built something bigger than me. 127 farm kids got scholarships this year. 18 family farms got emergency grants. 45 families got medical assistance. Grandpa's combine has been seen by 300,000 people so far. That's legacy, Grace, not the money, the ripples. The next day, the combine arrived at Cedar Falls County Fair. Hundreds of people lined up to see it, fully restored and gleaming. Children climbed on it under supervision, eyes wide with wonder. Diane Morrison gave tours, telling the story of how this machine had changed the world. Grace and I stood in the crowd watching. A young boy, maybe 10, stared up at the combine with awe. Wow, this thing is so cool. I want to be an engineer. His mother smiled. Then you should study hard, honey. The boy looked worried. Can girls be engineers too? Grace spoke up. Yes, I'm going to Iowa State for agricultural engineering. Awesome! I stood there watching children climb on a machine I'd almost scrapped for $500. A machine worth millions that had taught me something priceless. Your value isn't determined by what you own, but by what you choose to do. Grandpa Hal didn't give me money. He gave me a choice. To be bitter or better, to hoard or share, to prove people wrong or lift them up. I chose, and in choosing, I discovered I was never nothing. Never a failure, just someone waiting for her moment. That rusty combine wasn't an inheritance. It was a mirror, showing me who I really was. Someone strong enough to survive, wise enough to choose carefully, brave enough to forgive, and loving enough to share. Grandpa Hal knew. He always knew. And now, so do I. So let me ask you, if someone handed you $1 million tomorrow, who would you become? Would you hoard it or share it? Would you spend it proving people wrong or use it to lift people up? The answer to that question tells you everything about who you really are. If this story touched you, if it made you think about your own choices, please share it. Comment below with what you would do. And remember, the most valuable gifts often come disguised as rusty old machines in overgrown fields. You just have to be brave enough to see their true worth. Thank you for listening.